Greetings, everybody, and thank you for joining us. It's exciting to have you here. We have set up some pretty compelling presentations today. I'm DJ Charles, the Chief Technology Officer at Mixbook. I am from the US. I live in Boston, and I am happy to be here with my team periodically. And we thought that we would capitalize on getting the community together when we were here in country as much as possible to try to learn from each other, try to develop and culture this community. I can't say more good things about what Tryon has been doing for the community here. There are lots of programs he's going to talk to you about. I'll give you a moment to welcome people. I want you to write down this number if you need it, but we're going to take questions from the internet and from you guys if you want. If you want to get in line early, you can always raise your hand. But we're using an application called Slido.com, S-L-I-D-O.com. And there is a little code that you put into Slido.com on your phone, 113-7327. And we'll repeat that or get that written down for you guys. You'll be able to see the questions coming in, you'll be able to submit questions, and we will do our best when we get to the panel section to answer some of those questions. As part of today's events, we have an intro from my friend Tryon Chavanu here. We've got Yuri Hohan, who's a senior technology lead at Mixbook. We've got Sergey Rodin, who's also a presenter. So we'll have two presentations, about 20 minutes each, both chock full of really great content. Yuri's going to talk about cost optimization and scaling within AWS. He is an expert at this. We have Sergey Rodin, who is a software engineer at Cloud Ninja. And he's going to talk about naming conventions and some things that are near and dear to his heart. So we're very happy to have these presentations. I'm very excited that you were able to get this put together, Tryon. And maybe there's a few words you have to say before we get to the presentations. We're going to try to keep this on time, and we're going to roll into a panel on scaling, AI, all kinds of controversial topics. So please stick around after the two presentations today.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank you, DJ, for inviting us and hosting this event for the community and helping us organize this. And I would love to see more companies doing this. So if your employer wants to host an event, you have colleagues that want to speak about something, feel free to reach out to me and we can put something together. And probably with some help, we'll have a big AWS community day in a couple of months. So just follow us and hear about our events.
Okay. And I'll say that we will have a panel later on. I encourage you to stick around. We are talking about some of the hottest topics right now, including AI. Some of this stuff is controversial. We're wondering if we're going to be able to keep our jobs. We're going to help you navigate how, in fact, we believe we will keep our jobs. There's a lot of really great movements taking place in technology. We're right at the front of this, and it's our responsibility to understand it as best we can. But to that end, we've got an amazing array of panelists, which you can see here on the slide behind me. And we are going to get into it, and we're going to get interactive, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'd love to welcome our first speaker with a presentation on how to cost optimize at AWS. He is a senior technology leader here at Mixbook, Yuri Hohan, and take it away, Yuri.
Hello everyone, we're getting the deck on the screen. So, the topic today is you decided to cost optimize AWS. Where do you start? Has anyone today present did cost optimization for AWS projects? They used to take a lot of money, and one of misconceptions is AWS is usually expensive and usually it's a big chunk, and it's up. If you get tasked with such project, first of all, you need to be excited. And the reason you need to be excited is because we are all technical nerds, and usually don't get all this kind of interesting craftsmanship projects where you need to dive into deep details of what's AWS, and it's an interesting technical project. But not this kind of excitement. This kind of excitement will not get you far. You need this kind of solid engineering excitement because you need to keep your head down. So now let's talk about the steps. Where do you start and what do you need to do first? So first of all, you need to learn all the AWS resources you have, how they interact, and deeply understand your system. Like this is the first step. Understand, like if you are especially new to the project or the organization, you need to know what do you have in there. So first of all, you need to know the topology of all AWS accounts. Do you have a staging account? Do you have a production account? Do you have multiple products and an account for each product? You need to know this. And usually, this is very conventional, but usually all the AWS resources fall into one of these buckets. It's either compute, meaning like EC2 instances, Docker containers, batch. You need to either have persistent, being S3 buckets, databases, cache resources, etc. And you have networking parts. Usually these parts consume most of the cost. So you need to identify all of them and to know all of them. Click. Next, you need to understand your product. You really need to understand what your product does, what's the business requirements, what's the life cycle of your system from the first user interaction to the final user interaction, because later you will be doing trade-offs knowing this information, but you really need to understand the product. You need to understand the business processes. Like in case of Mixbook, where do we print books? Where does the customer journey start? How do we market products? After the user has received the book, do we keep his photos? Don't we keep his photos? So all these trade-offs. We need to know the traffic patterns because one of the key components of cloud is elasticity. The whole idea of going to cloud and doing something in there is benefiting from the elasticity. So what does it mean? Do you have peaks in traffic? Do you have times when the system is used more than compared to the other periods? Like in Mixbook, Q4 is our peak season, is where our traffic increases 10 times. We benefit from elasticity. So elasticity meaning you can scale up the system as much as you want and scale it down if it's not used. Think about lifecycle rules behind your data. So does the business allow to shut down or retire a certain portion of data at some point, or it does not? Then study the access patterns of data. Like we can have smart lifecycle rules on S3 buckets, transforming things from one storage class to another storage class. So this is like all theory. I'll go to examples later. So next thing you need to do is make Cost Explorer your friend. So you need to spend a certain amount of hours in Cost Explorer, and what you need to do is you need to slice and dice as much as you can. On the screen you have it grouped by API operation, but if you have multiple accounts, you need to do a lot of grouping, filtering, and drill downing here. So you need to group by account, you need to group by service, you need to group by certain usage patterns, like for CloudWatch's API operation. For compute resources is amount of hours it spends. For S3 buckets is amount of traffic we pay for in and out of the bucket and amount of money we pay for the persistence part. So you need to know all of it because the end goal will be decomposing all parts of your cost. And by decomposition, you'll have something like this. So you have multiple services. One example is RDS, Relational Database Service. So you need to know how much money per day do you usually pay, and then you need to further decompose the cost. How much does a prod replica cost you? How much does I/O cost? Read replica? How many replicas you have? So it all boils down that you will not be able to produce something like this unless you understand the topology, the business, and the patterns. Secondary snapshot, storage, primary backup, etc. So you have all this information for all the resources. It's just one resource. You have tens of resources, and for each of them you build a mind map like this. And then you need to start thinking, preferably outside the box, and start optimizing. So now to the examples. So I categorize all these three things into three big buckets. The first thing is tech improvements. So for example, it's a real-life example from Mixbook. Is your network flowing by its expected or larger? So because we didn't have VPC endpoints, our S3 traffic was our VPC traffic was going through the internet and to S3, and this was suboptimal. We introduced VPC endpoints connecting our traffic directly to S3 and not by NAT gateways, and by this we saved a lot of money. So this is just one example. If you studied your network and you know the patterns and you drill down, you can make the call. Is your network good enough or not? Obvious thing, usually you can switch to a new generation of compute. Recently, it's a trend of ARM compute. ARM compute on almost every resource is cheaper by at least 25%. Like for example, Fargate, by switching to ARM architecture, you are automatically saving 25% of the cost. But this is just one example. So if you know your system better, if you know what kind of resources you use, you can think and approach in the mindset of, okay, how do I improve it technically? When technical is out of the way, you can further think with system, product, business improvements. So knowing your access patterns, knowing how popular is demand on your service, you can make scale up, scale down decisions. You can automatically scale up, scale down based on alarms, your, I don't know, Fargate containers or Kubernetes containers if you have them, based on amount of requests, based on CPU usage, and other metrics which are relevant to the kind of software you are running. Then you can also introduce life cycles to your persistence. So for example, we use photos a lot on Mixbook, and usually the photos are very much accessed in the first 30 days, and then the access patterns for those photos are different. So we can make certain trade-offs by moving photos from one storage class to another storage class in time, intelligently. But it very much depends on your system. Next is, do you have legacy objects? By legacy objects, I don't know. There is a part somewhere in the system which runs and you don't use it anymore, just because no one cared about it. And you'll be surprised. Usually, even such small things as legacy objects saves lots of money. So it's usually easy win, low-hanging fruit. Another axis you can go is prepaid commitments. Very simple. You can do all upfront for services and it saves you money. Like for example, you know you are on a certain level of database class, or you know you will be spending certain hours of compute during the year, and you can commit to it upfront, and it can save you from 20 to 40% of course, based on how much you pay upfront, how much you can pay. You can play with it on AWS website, and depending on the service and how much you pay upfront, how much you pay throughout the year, you can save lots of money. And usually, if your business is more or less stable, it's an easy decision. So, as you see, you should not limit yourself only to the tech improvements or the product improvements. It's much. You need to approach this systematically and holistically, and costs will start going down. They will start going down, and at this point, they are going down to an acceptable level, and you might think, okay, my job is done, I can move to the next project. But it's usually not as simple as this. You need to watch the community. And I'll give you two examples of how watching the community helped us this year at Mixbook. So this year, 2022, Glacier IR storage class was introduced. And it was made in heaven for Mixbook. So we stored petabytes of photos. We store a lot of photos, and we need it to be cost efficient. And we were talking, okay, what do we do with photos? When it's time we start retiring those photos, and what do we do with them? And as you see, it's designed for durability, availability, and millisecond success. Because with previous Glacier, we didn't have instant retrieval. It was a problem for us. But with instant retrieval in there, and us accessing this data pretty rarely, it allowed us to reduce our cost by around 60–68% on the photos we stored historically, and it was a pretty easy transfer, which one of our teams was able to accomplish in a couple of weeks and save lots of money for business. Of course, with an initial cost, but if we would not know the community, we would not know about it. Another example, we'll talk about AI more today. But you know that if we talk about AI, usually it's how do you infer those models fast. And usually you pick GPU-powered instances for that to be able to fit into the memory the large models you might have. And GPU is good, but there was a special compute created by Amazon for it, which is called and released last year, Inferential 2. So Inferential 2, there is a link in my presentation with more details and benchmarks, but usually depending on the kind of model you are having, it allows you first to speed up the time to infer something from the model, and also cost optimize by at least twice. So that's why for our AI inferring, we are planning to use inferential. So staying in touch with community will allow you to make the right decisions as the community progresses, your system progresses, and if you need to set up thresholds and alarms, because no matter what you do, things will get out of control, because it's software and it's alive. And it can be based on volume of traffic which hits your servers, it can be based on how your code base evolves, it can be based on many different things. And you can have high-level thresholds and alarms like this account should spend this much, or you can have lower-level alarms like I expect my database expenses not to be more than, I don't know, $1,000 per month, or even lower when something spiked within a day, so you can react upon it. But you better learn about it fast than do a reactive exercise in a couple of months when you suddenly understand that your bill is very high. So this is an ongoing project, ongoing effort. But once you go down with the cost, and it's in control by thresholds and alarms, you can say that, okay, I know Amazon, I know how much do I pay, I can make a reasonable trade-off, should I have my on-demand or cloud provider services, and you really understand, right, and you are in the control of this cost. Because otherwise it's a mystery. Amazon charges so much, depending on your security requirements and tech requirements, you can make this conscious trade-off. Thank you. Any questions?
What about using cost allocation tax? For example, for a course, for any department, do you use that?
No, we don't, but yeah, tagging is one thing to understanding your system. So you can tag everything and understand where it comes from, but kind of know our systems in and out. Yeah, we don't tag it.
Anyway, maybe just recommendation, I suppose that every Amazon object should have a lot of text, and one of them should be cost allocation check. It's really useful to understand from which department, maybe even to have tech with lifetime. We have a good practice.
Yeah, I agree. Depending on how complex is the system, you might. At the point when we had a couple of brands under the umbrella of Mixbook, we used to tag. Now we don't tag anymore. But this is a good suggestion.
In terms of Glacier, do you warm up the objects somehow, because it takes like milliseconds to retrieve? It's still a lot of time to retrieve like real-time photos. Do you warm it up somehow? Or
no, we don't. That's the idea. Glacier ER is Glacier Instant Retrieval. So it's the same amount, the same time you spend as standard IA or standard. Before, when we had only Glacier and Deep Glacier options, that was a no-go for us. When they released Glacier ER, it behaves for us, for users, the same as standard and standard IA, but with cost-saving benefit.
And we also use CloudFront, so you do kind of
Cache.
Yeah.
So it goes to CloudFront and then it's read once and gets cached for a while.
What is the downside of the Glacier IR?
Downside is your access patterns. So if you access the objects pretty often, it might not be the good option for you.
So there is a limit on access.
Yes, it's instant retrieval, but also it's infrequent access still. It's less frequent than standard IA. But again, this is a great example of how watching the community, it was really a challenge. We were thinking, what do we do with those photos? And then they released it, and it was like Vlad's team who did it in a month, and it's a big cost saving for us.
And the instances you mentioned, INS2, or what's the name of it? Like the one for visual.
For AA?
Yeah.
Inferential.
What is used for? Like graphic one for image processing, or like what's the
So when you do AI, you have two things. You need to train the model. This is task number one. Second is you need to use the trained model to produce some results in the runtime. So this is called inferring. Inferring is usually during the inferring part you have a large model which takes gigabytes, and usually you need to fit it into the RAM. You need very fast memory for it. But inferential is even faster and specifically tailored by Amazon for inferring tasks.
Thank you,
Forward to
Yuri.
the next speaker.
Not only does he know his stuff about cost optimization, this company has put a lot of this into motion, and it has paid off. And I would encourage you to follow your dailies and to look at how much your services cost you per day. Once you do that, you'll determine what your healthy waterline is for these things. And that visibility, which is constant, becomes a community knowledge, and we can all watch the instances. It's very easy to keep drives attached. It's very easy to do things that may not be front and center for us. And Yuri's been just an absolute beast at finding our threshold. Well, I would love to bring up our next speaker. Sergey Rodin is going to talk to us about naming conventions. Would you like to come up, Sergey? And that's another 20-minute conversation. And then we're going to get ready for our panel, which, again, is going to be a lot of fun and will be somewhat interactive if we do it correctly. So I'm looking forward to that. Do we have Sergey's presentation ready to go? Almost? Okay. And thank you very much. It's great to see you.
Thank you.
Big hand for Sergey Rodin from Code Ninja.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sergey Rodin. The last 15 years I'm doing clusters, availability, all that stuff. And these days I call myself Captain Kubernetes or Cloud Ninja because I know some Kung Fu. Yeah, this is the slide. This is me on KubeCon 2023 in Netherlands, in Amsterdam. So I want to talk about naming conventions. First of all, what is naming convention? It is a set of rules that define how you name variables, functions, all that stuff that that you read every day. And a good naming convention can help you to discover, to understand more when you're seeing something, right? It also helps you to propagate and enforce consistency within your team. It also enables you to automatically refactor your old code base. Like you want to search for old variable, and if it's named properly and you follow the rules, you can just do a refactoring. And then, yes, it also enhances aesthetics. So I want to show you a couple of good examples on how naming convention works. What you see is a small little car. It's called BMW Isetta. It was created by Italian company ISO. And Isetta, it's diminutive from Isetta. It means little ISO. This car was produced by BMW in mid-15th. And it is here because it's the first and the last car that had a real name on it. Since 1972, BMW had created naming convention, and they stick to it till these days. It's quite simple. It has 3 blocks. As you can see, the first section in the block, it's a number that represents the model series. And the bigger the number, the bigger the car. So 1 goes for compact cars, and like 5 is the bigger sedan. Also, quite interesting is that if you have even number, it means sports-oriented car. So 2, 4, 6, and 8, it's like sports performance-oriented cars. And then we have a pair of numbers that represent engine displacement or volume in deciliters divided by 10. So 20 means 2.0 liters, and like the capacity. And the last letter, it indicates the engine type. I stands for fuel injected, petrol injected engine, and D, as you can guess, it stands for diesel. And this is the car that was produced in this year. And you can still read this naming convention. 7 means like it's a huge luxury sedan. And then we have 45, and then we have E. So E, as you can guess, means electric. And 45, like I said, it was used to indicate the volume capacity, but these days we don't pour liquid into electric engines. So it represents the performance, the capacity in kilowatts divided by 10. So it's roughly 415 kilowatts. The cool thing about this naming convention is that it works. Like it's future-oriented and it's easy understandable beyond the Germany. Like you can understand, you can read it. That's the cool thing about it. And you don't have a second thought that you are designing a new car. You just like, okay, this is going to be 748, I don't know. It's easy to work. And you might think that it's so simple that everyone should use it. And I want to show you the next 2 examples. The car companies created in 2003, like 2 companies were created in 2003, and their naming convention. Yeah, this is BAD, Chinese company, and the car is named Han. And on the back, on the rear, you will see this badge, 3.95. Can you guess what it means? Like anyone, really, guys? What does that mean? It's the speed that car makes from 0 to 60, like to 100. Just, yeah, all right, we get it. It's a fast car, but their naming convention obviously doesn't tell you much about the car, and it doesn't scale that easily how BMW convention scales. And this is again a modern company. You probably know it is Tesla, and they have Model X. Model X, Model 3, Model Y, and if you play with the letters, you will get like sexy, which is fun, and it does not scale. They release Cybertruck, which does not fit into the convention, so they fail to be consistent, and that is why I show them as like bad examples. And if you really want to see the naming convention that stood test of time, I want to show you like let's talk New York. Yeah, so in 19th century, New York was, well, it overgrew every single city in the United States. It became the most and the largest city in the United States. And they called a commission to create a plan on how to map the island to distribute buildings, all that stuff. And the plan is like it's pure genius. They basically have created a rectangular grid and split the island on like these small sections. So vertically, what you can see, it's a street that is called Avenue. It's a broad street. It's large street, two-way street. So vertically, we have avenues, and from east to west, it goes First Avenue. Next slide. Then we have Second Avenue. Next slide, please. And then we have Third Avenue. Like quite simple, straightforward system. And with streets, we have exactly the same approach. It just splits and divides the island in like horizontal, with an addition of geographical like location. We have suffixes east and west to identify it's either east coast or west coast. So yeah, we have this beautiful grid, and the power of the system with this naming convention is that you can easily understand when you have an appointment on certain intersection, you can visually understand where this intersection is. I will show you. You just have to learn the map, and with some time, you will get the good feeling and sensation on where this intersection is located. So 5E57 works like sort of chessboard. You know the location of that object, and it works really, like, it's just cool. I want to show you the next slide. It's the Coda building that was built in 1886 in the middle of nowhere, like, really. And then if you look at this building these days, you will see how perfectly it fits into the grid system. And it's just cool. I like it. So the next thing I want to talk about is not a naming convention, but rather an approach to it. And it was introduced by Sir Dave Brailsford for Team Sky. British cycling, it was honestly it was a crap before him, and with him was it's him. So his philosophy. Let me talk quickly about his philosophy and what made Team Sky so successful. So he had this idea of aggregated marginal gains. The idea is simple. If you deconstruct the win of cycling team on Tour de France, you will have a lot of things, not just like training program, not just physical abilities, not like just genetics, a lot of things. And if you are going to improve every single thing by 1%, you will get a huge amount of benefits. And that's exactly what he did for his team. This is the result. So he started in 2010, and as you can see, six wins almost in a row. That's how he made British cycling popular and famous. But I want to show you what he did precisely. Of course, he started with bicycles. He improved tires, frame. He developed a new bicycle for the team. And then, next slide please, and then he took it to a limit, to the limits that you cannot think of. He created a bus with seats first class seats in planes for riders, so they have better rest, by 1% better rest than everyone else. And then to get even better rest, he took mattresses and pillows, and every single hotel they stayed in had this special mattress and pillows, just so riders can have a better sleep. And he was really creative, not just him. The whole team took tried to improve by 1% things. This is a water bottle. This team uses about 37,000 water bottles during the year. And they drink water and also energy drinks, just to have some energy to cycle. So he color-coded bottle, and it helps you to understand what you are drinking. Just by looking at the top of the bottle, you will see if it's just pure white, it's a water. If it has a blue ring on it, it's an energy drink, and this helps you to give out this cognitive load that you might have thinking what I'm gonna drink. And the funny thing about programmers and tech guys is that we are obsessed with numbers. We are watching how Go is faster than C or Python is faster than Perl, and so on and so on. And we have a lot of charts and arguments about it. Meanwhile, the time we spent on reading code versus time we are writing code, it's incomparable. We spend a lot of time reading stuff, and that is why I urge you to follow Dave Brailsford approach and think about naming convention. How you name things. Maybe you can improve and gain some time, not just by saving costs on AWS. Maybe you can save costs of time finding stuff in AWS. Next slide, please. So let's talk about letter case. First of all, we have uppercase and lowercase, and it's an easy argument that I can win. It's supported in multiple researches that uppercase is harder to read because it has like flat shape. You don't see variety in letters. So lowercase text is 13% easier to read and faster to read. So this is supported in several researches, and that's why maybe you should consider using lowercase in your naming convention and forget about like prod. I know we like huge letters to indicate the importance and significance, but still it will be faster to read if you stick to lowercase. What about word delimiters? We have this snake case versus kebab case. And again, I want to show you which one is faster. It's simple as that. In order to press to have an underscore, you have to press two keys. While for hyphens, you have just one key, and it is faster. That's why I suggest you to use hyphens for naming your stuff. Let's talk about. Okay, this one is going to be more difficult to argue about, but I will try. So environment placement. In English language, it's sort of comes natural to speak it, to name it like this. Dev API node. It sounds good. It sounds right. Still, we have the second option, which is node API dev. Like environment goes either first or last. And which one is better? We'll try to show you. Of course, if you next slide please. Of course, if you read like in AWS console, you see a lot of EC2 instances. They're by default they're sorted alphabetically, which means the first option is easier to understand and navigate. Yet I don't find this argument strong enough because we all have filters. I can just filter and find my stuff easily. And in console, I have grep, I have other tools. And sort. But the thing about the second option, when we have environment name in the end, is that it really helps with DNS. This is a model that I want you to consider. So we have a domain. This is how it can work, and then we have environment, and then we have project. Next slide, please. In this case, it's API. Yes. Next slide, please. Project, and then we will have service name, which is next slide, this one, and next slide, and here we go. You have this beautiful name, my SQL.api.stage.domain.tld, and we have column for protocol. And the thing about this convention, this way of having names, is that when you see an error message telling you that something is wrong, you can have more information about you have context. Remember, good naming convention should give you more information. Just by looking at the BMW number, you can understand what's like the size, the engine volume, and so on and so on. The same thing applies here. Just by looking, I can tell that we are having some issues with API on stage environment, and it's MySQL, and most likely it's DNS related issue. So naming convention. You can, if you use templates with templating, it's a great support to your naming convention. If you are using templates, if you take the model I just showed you previously and try to template it, you will have to define domain name, environment, and project on top, and then you can create extra variable that will have like project domain, and then you will simply add service names to it. So if you propagate this template idea into your tooling, Terraform, CI/CD system, Helm charts, .env, you have the lever to control your environment on scale. It really works this way. The simple idea that can help you. Yes, and the power of having good naming convention is that you can predict the names. Like last time we had a deployment in China, and the manager wanted to prepare documentation for the customer. He asked, like, what is the domain name we are going to provide with? And if you don't have naming convention, you will you will have hard times trying to find a good name for it. But if you have naming convention, you just go like, of course, like this. It will look like this. You just replace things in the middle, and that's it. And I want to tell you that BMW has a lot of exceptions in their system. New York streets are not all named by numbers. There are exceptions, and this is good, because any idea that, if you take any idea to absolute, it just does not work and becomes like ugly. And that is why you should stretch your naming convention. If you are dealing with what is it? Elasticsearch indexes, you can add dates. If you are dealing with S3 buckets, you can add AWS organization, because we all know that AWS shares the same namespace for S3 buckets among all users. So you have to come up with a good name. You can extend your naming convention to include that piece. And yeah, let me remind you what good naming convention can do for you. It can help you with discovery, to discover your city, your infrastructure. It can help you to enforce consistency within your team, and just aesthetically good. Thank you. Next slide. If you have any questions.
I have a question. It's not really about software engineering, but I was thinking about that sports team. I was wondering what role performance enhancing drugs played in their performance, because I mean you can reduce their nutrition but by 1% and maybe they go from the first place to the second place. But if you take their performance enhancing drugs, they probably go from the first place to the 20th place, right? So I'm curious about what was more important and less important.
Yeah, if we take moral aspect of it aside.
It's not about I mean like biology, physiology. Like it's more about prioritization, what was more important and less important.
So the guy from Team Sky later on commented on the stuff, and he called it BS. He told everyone that this simply does not work. But I really believe that the system works well and gives you like that extra benefit if you follow the convention. Just morally, everyone was destroyed when the team decided to take out their riders from Vulcan using helicopter to the huddle, while everyone else was having a bus ride 3 hours long to their huddles. So the next day, the team came up fresh, and everyone else was just purely envious. So I think it works. I think we can take out doping out of the formula because everyone else could use it as well, and still they have victories that you cannot argue about.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I don't care about the moral issues. It's more about like for different dimensions. If you have a 1% increase, it requires different effort. Right?
Yes.
Because to improve nutrition is one thing, but to improve sleep is probably more difficult.
Oh yeah. Now I get it. Okay, I agree, and it's sometimes it's hard to judge what is the impact. If we take, for example, the slide about lowercase and uppercase, and what is better, you will just fail to understand and calculate the number of car drivers in the United States who previously dealt with the science with uppercase, destinations versus science with lowercase destinations. It's just faster to read, and you don't know how many times you will fail to read it. So we cannot estimate it properly, but what we know for sure, it works and it is better.
Thank you.
Thanks. No questions. I will go. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
All right, thank you very much, Sergey. That was awesome. I remember from science class, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. And when I think about naming conventions, I think about what is the biggest, most riskiest grouping that we're looking at. And I like to, in a crisis, be able to know that everything is at my fingertips. We can always grep, we can always search, but there's nothing like unexpectedly looking through logs for things. So, turning this back on. Okay, stick around. In a few minutes, we're going to have a panel. Sergey's coming back. He's going to be on that panel. We've got the Chief Product Officer. He and I have come here from the United States, from Mixbook. We've got our tech leads, product manager, Olya, as well. And we can't wait to get into it with you all. So please stick around. Just give us 5 minutes to get seating arranged and mics on. And we're going to talk about the future. Welcome, everybody. This is so exciting. We have a special panel for you today. I'm your moderator, Chief Technology Officer at Mixbook, DJ Charles, visiting from the US. I'm happy to be traveling with my colleague on the executive team at Mixbook, David Newhoff. He's our Chief Product Officer. He's been in the imaging space for a long time. He's also an expert at a lot of things, and he's a very strong visionary, so it's been a blast working with him. And I'm also traveling from the US with Michael Strittmatter, wave your hand. He's a senior technology lead and runs a lot of the innovations happening in our mobile group. They're doing a lot with AI, they're doing a lot with computer vision, and it's exciting to have Michael here. It probably makes sense for you to, for the internet audience again, to introduce yourself. We'll just sort of go down the line here.
Hi, I'm Traian. I'm a AWS user group leader and community builder in Moldova, and my scope is to organize the community, organize events, and get technical people together to speak about different things and do presentation about different things. And in the free time, I enjoy flying, I enjoy traveling, and I spend a lot of time with my puppy.
Awesome. And Michael, I gave you a quick visual intro, but feel free to tell people who you are.
So, Michael Strittmatter. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, work for Mixbook, obviously, and I've been doing mobile for a long time, all in photo companies, and so a lot of work recently with photo analysis and using AI and machine learning for all of those things. It's a really exciting space to be in, so it's definitely exploding right now.
Awesome. Yuri?
Yuri Kohan. I'm a senior tech lead at Mixbook Moldova. I've been in software since I was in school from the Olympiads, and my biggest passions are around systems, around databases, AWS included, but I'm the guy who usually solves a lot of problems with DB queries.
Interesting fact, Yuri is our local professor of many things. He is very good at visualizing, very good at taking lots of information and presenting it in a format that allows people to understand things, to learn about what we're doing. So I affectionately refer to Yuri as our special professor from time to time. He's not only a brilliant technology lead, but he loves to impart knowledge, and it's a great thing that you're here in the community and in the company, so thank you, Yuri. And if you're here earlier for Yuri's discussion about cost optimization, you saw just that. David.
Great.
The man who sailed around the world. I like to tell people that.
Well, thanks for the intro. David Newhoff, Chief Product Officer at Mixbook. And great to be here today. Great to be in the beautiful offices of Mixbook and in this wonderful, gorgeous country of Moldova. Little country, big heart, it says it at the airport. And I really love that about the office here and all the people that I come across here. So really looking forward to this discussion and our role in shaping the future of storytelling.
Awesome. And Olya Medvedeva, please introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Olya Medvedeva. I'm product manager here at Mixbook. I am passionate about solving user problems and in general making lives better for our users. I work for Create team. We are trying to make the creation process as fun and memorable as it could be, and so that our customers, they come back to us as often as they would like to. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, with that, we said that we would get into some real-world problems, real-world solutions. I think it would be, we're going to take questions, of course, but I think it would be great for you to understand some of the perspectives here from a product manager. And so I'll ask you right now, we'll just get the panel started, if that's okay.
Yes.
My question for you, Oya, is what customer problems are we solving? And how can we make our solutions impactful or maybe future-proof?
So Mixbook is about photo books, or it used to be about photo books. And what is a photo book essentially? It's a cheat sheet for your memory. So you open the book, you see a photo, and you remember something. The photo book is static. People come to us, make that book, and they kind of open it over time and try to remember what was happening and what emotions did we feel. As you understand, creating one, it's not that easy. It's very difficult to preserve your memory, to create that artifact which speaks for your soul. That's why it's a problem that is very interesting to solve. People used to do photo books long before the software was created, so we did like some scrapbooking, we did some like albums. Now you have more advanced technology to do so, but it's still very difficult. And it's still static. And when you think of the tool that can improve it, you think that the memory should be preserved as intact as possible, not in a static form, but in a form which really visualizes it for you. So that's how we're thinking about our future. We are trying to apply technology to make memories alive. And here, Amazon really can help us, and we can use the latest technologies of the cloud to basically sprinkle that technology into our software and to project it into the future. So, one more thing. We should make it not only live, but also magical for the user. And to make it magical, we really should use the latest state-of-the-art technology and to make it as fast as possible. Because when you're thinking about something, when you're remembering something, it pops up immediately. So how can we make software as intelligent and as exciting as the thoughts in your head, as your emotions inside your heart? We're using all that technology collected together and give it to our users.
Wow, and the world's changed a lot. I mean, there's a lot more to consider in terms of how we would deliver solutions today. The way that we may approach a problem 5 years ago, it's very different today. Yuri, I'm going to put you on the spot. What kinds of technologies are we using to achieve some of these very important and lofty goals?
Yeah. So first of all, AI is here to stay. Working on AI today is an exciting thing. Like we couldn't probably imagine it 5 years ago. But technology usually goes through these loops of booms. So nowadays it's AI. And if we talk about AI, it's usually training the model and inferring from the model. So if we talk about training, usually stay within your AWS SageMaker. And it's a separate field with lots of challenges how to train a model efficiently. And as soon as it's ready, you need to pick the right compute to infer it and scale. And one of the best options so far is inferential too. So this is what we do. Like you can of course do it on GPU-based instances, but that's not as cost efficient. And usually you are after speed and after cost optimization. If you want to deliver something with AI, it should be fast because you want it to feel magical.
And we saw the performance statistics that you showed in your presentation today. When you chose Inferentia, was this a matter of speed? Was this a matter of convenience? A matter of addressing? Was it all of the above?
All of the above. So like speed and cost efficiency.
Yep.
AWS AI services are not that cheap, so we want to keep the cost under control. You have on-prem solutions, like for example, we used AWS recognition to recognize faces on the photos and labels on the photos. But imagine you have a flow of, I don't know, 1 million photos a day, and how you can go to the page and do the maps really easy and find out how much you're gonna pay. If you're gonna train the model to analyze each photo and you're analyzing millions of photos per day again, you need to project how much will you pay for that. and if it's sustainable for the business, and if the AI components bolster your product that much that this money will pay off.
Can we build these things ourselves? Do we need to rely on a cloud provider to provide these kinds of services, or do we have our own capabilities to train our own models?
The whole field is new, but it's already so vast. It goes, and it's not really new. AI really existed long before that boom. So, yeah, beyond AWS, there is so much resources to soak in. One of the great resources which I can recommend is Hugging Face community. They are one of the best AI professionals out there. Of course, their services cost a lot, but you can at least inspire from their article and blog materials. And this is how our team stumbled upon Referential. But if you go to Hugging Face blogs and read about AI, they post like all their trials and errors all the time, and yeah, you need to look past AWS to do these things efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say another aspect that we can take advantage of and do take advantage of is, kind of edge computing, if you will. A lot of the same kinds of things that we do on the server side with AWS recognition, we can do on the client side with our iOS client at this point, and Android in the future. On the client before you upload the photo, and so by kind of taking a spread approach like this, you can ensure that you get the same data from multiple locations, feed it all into your backend so that it's all usable in the same way, whether the faces came from the client or the server. Either way, you still can do the same compute, the same analysis of the photos, and take advantage of the intelligence gained from that.
I believe you were training your own models using something called ML Kit. Do I have that right?
Yeah, on the Apple ecosystem, it's called Create ML to train your own models. We're doing some of that for understanding the photos that you're taking and that you're grouping together, trying to figure out what kind of events you're taking photos of. But in addition to that, just taking advantage of the existing labeling functionality that's kind of built into every iPhone now, along with the great labeling. It can be done quickly and against the user's entire camera roll, not needing to actually upload the entire camera roll to the cloud, obviously, because that could be a security concern, but we can still take advantage of all of that. And then when the user says, yes, these are the photos I want to use, we can consolidate all that up to the server. They can combine them with other photos that are already on the server, and it really can take a consistent approach across everything, all of our services.
Awesome. There's a lot of excitement around generative AI, BERT, BARD. We've got a lot of potential in that space, but you've probably seen some of the articles where Hewlett-Packard engineers had used prompts to assist them with coding and had released inadvertently a large amount of their code base to the wild. We do need to think about security in the future. I'm very encouraged and hopeful by what we're seeing with the cloud providers. It's my hope that we'll be working on training, doing so quickly, scaling on those models, understanding what we can do in real time, allow ourselves to feel safe, our customer data and information to feel safe. It's hard to innovate when you're thinking so much about scale. You're thinking so much about capability. And I think that the movement we're seeing with the cloud providers, and I can't speak specifically to anyone, but we're all very bullish on the things that we're reading about directions that AWS is going in and others, that we can't help but be excited to know that scaling will be addressed, security will likely be addressed, and the kinds of things that we're going to be doing is thinking about how we can use it rather than is it going to work and are it going to be consumed with other things. I'd like to ask our Chief Product Officer, David Neuhoff, about so many companies who are looking into Gen AI. We're surely seeing a surge of companies trying to find a differentiator and trying to find differentiation in this landscape with generative AI and leaning into AI in general. What is it that makes Mixbook and our leaning different in this landscape?
Great question. Well, at Mixbook, everything comes back to our core purpose. In Mixbook, we're on a mission to empower creativity and deepen human connection. We believe that as humans, we live our best lives when we're creating and when we're connecting. And when you engage in the art of storytelling, you make a deeper connection to those memories, and those memories have a voice. And in the voicing of those connections, you get to learn a lot more about yourself and in your connection to others. And those connections voice things like, I love you. I'll never forget you. I'm so glad we're together. And that mission is at the core of who we are and what we're building. And we hold a really important thing in our hands as product and engineers. And that trust is not something that Mixbook will ever let down our customers. How we're going to differentiate is a big part of that mission. Mm-hmm. We want to help our customers, just as Olga said, celebrate those memories, but in a truly unique way. We're on the very edge of this new wave of creativity in a wildly unique but deeply personal, and for Mixbook that is around our design and our simplicity and that trust.
I love the idea of using AI for good. We're seeing a lot of companies trying to find a way to use AI for good. Do we have a trust problem? Is the consumer aware of the prompts and the information that we're deriving in order to provide a service? Do you think that we have a challenge with the general public to over-promote the fact that we're using AI securely and we're using AI for the best intentions? And is AI for good a big part of our mission?
100%. And there's a lot of fear around these technologies right now and how various engineers and end users and developers are going to be using it and how end customers are going to use it. There's a lot of fear and ambiguity on how that's going to get used or misused. And I know for us at Mixbook, that's not something that we take lightly.
Yeah, I'll just remind the internet audience, if you have questions, you can send them directly to me here, slido.com. 113-7327 is the code you need to put in. And if you do, and you want to direct them to David or anybody here, I can make sure that questions get to specific people as well. So feel free to use that service. Thank you, David. Back to generative AI. We have a huge responsibility and a huge burden of understanding what we're doing. You have to be careful. The news cycles are going to be full of a lot of big brands and big companies that maybe inadvertently didn't get it right, or there was a breach. Some sort of a breach in confidence is something that will affect all of us. So I think the more that we can do to understand where to go, how to navigate this, how to use data well enough to be able to market security is going to be one of the things that we're going to see defining the future. The other is the controversial quest for authenticity. I don't know if you've seen the news over the past week or so, but we've had some copyright infringements from some of the largest brands that we all know. We've had also social backlash from companies who are using AI to depict images and stereotypical images of certain cultures and people. So, there's, with any big movement comes some degree of discomfort, and we have to be willing to understand where that's coming from and the importance of that. And I'll just read a statistic about the engineering landscape here, and this will be directed at you, Michael, because I know Michael and I have had a beer from time to time, and we tend to have very healthy debate on specific topics. And this is one that I'm going to let you in on and see if maybe you can chime in as well on this. So you've undoubtedly seen the dire predictions about how artificial intelligence will wreak havoc on the workforce. Most notably, investment bank Goldman Sachs predicts ChatGPT and similar forms of AI could trigger the loss of 300 million jobs around the world. Generative AI, good or bad for tech jobs, and why?
So I think that, take software development as a use case there. There's many different aspects of software development that, generative AI, large language models just don't really have an impact on yet. The creativity aspect of programming, where it's not just putting pieces together in a rote way, but instead using your prior knowledge, your experience to do it in a way that is, solving the problem in new creative ways. There's the aspect of debugging and maintaining large systems where you have to be able to analyze problems that are happening, dynamically without prior experience other than just the general idea of how such problems happen. And then there's also things like understanding your customer, understanding the business needs. The large language models, those don't have the ability to analyze those aspects of your business and really kind of understand your unique cases and how that can be then put together into a system. Now, in all honesty, those answers are from a large language model. I asked this question ahead of time and had them say,
Of course you did.
do I need to worry as a programmer for a large language model taking my job? And those were the reasons that it gave, that I don't necessarily have to worry about that. But that's just an indicative piece about this field, is that it's a tool. It does a superhuman ability to distill information and provide you that information in a human readable way, human understandable way that it would take Google plus all these infinite services to replicate. And so as a programmer, do I write sorting algorithms any longer? Do I do 3D rendering code any longer? No, I load up OpenGL and write the actual 3D code that way. I pull up a algorithm book or a website and figure out the optimal sorting algorithm and then use it. The job as a programmer is to then raise the bar even beyond that. What can you do beyond the simple rote basic answers and build these systems in new unique ways? It's not, oh wow, look, I learned how to rotate a cube in 3D space. It's, no, look, I wrote a game that is in full 3D with all of these pieces working at 60 frames per second. That's the challenge as a programmer. And, every time the tools raise the bar for us, we then use the tools to create things that weren't even possible before that. So I think that the job as a programmer is pretty safe.
I think, a lot of us who've been doing this for a long time, remember we've gone from Notepad to NPM. And I remember talking to Yuri about my journey in technology over about 30 years, how, we started from a blank page. And I look up 20 years later and we're doing NPMs that are downloading entire universes of configurations and running things locally. We used to take weeks to get our environments up and running. And when Michael and I have talked about this in the past, you have used a pretty interesting example about image coordinates. Almost, the brute mechanics of coordinates for plotting, which is really the bare essence of positioning. But you think of now the ability to automatically lay things out, the ability to look at contrast, the ability to take information that was almost invisible to the naked eye, and to use that in ways that we used to start from here and now we're starting from there. It's my hope and my firm belief, really, that we are going to be doing more from ground zero than we've ever done before. And it's about how we think and how we approach problems. All right, I want to talk about authenticity for a minute. How do we feel about training models with information that doesn't belong to us? Yuri, do you have a moral tick about taking someone else's content and training a model on it? How do you feel about it?
I think there are obviously moral obligations. It's not for it's not for no reason that CCPA, GDPR compliance rules have appeared. It's like almost every website from starting about 2 years or maybe 1 year ask you to accept the cookies. And I think this is like, we as engineers have this obligation. It's just like on us taking this data seriously, making sure we don't leak it, making sure it's secured privately, the database is encrypted, and yeah, we have the life cycles. And if the user is concerned, obviously every software nowadays should have a way to remove the user data, wipe it out, and to the point when you cannot identify the person from the data anymore. So,
Yeah. If we take a Picasso, for example, and decide to use that as part of our training set or our transformer, I wonder where this is going. It makes me wonder if we're creating a problem that obscures the Picasso, but that gives us the gestures of Picasso. And is that the same as copyright infringement for someone's work? I think about songwriting. I think about works of art. All of the billions of information sets that are being put into these large language models. We have a tremendous opportunity to look at our own use cases, look at what's specific to the things that we do, and to find uniqueness in the patterns and the data that we have so that we're not recursing into the same outputs for everything that we see. I think we're going to see a lot of the same in areas of art. We've seen it in the university systems with term papers. Don't tell me no one's ever tried ChatGPT to get through an assignment. Curriculums are changing based on interactions and how people think. Brian?
I want to say that in music, actually, like if you follow the patterns in the last couple of years, you see a lot of songs that are just remakes of songs of the 80s, 90s, and it's just because the labels own the copyright for that, and if they want to do a new release with new words or something, they can just reuse the patterns from very popular songs.
Yep, and I think the quest for authenticity is becoming more challenging. There is an air of spontaneity that we find in some art that's hard to reproduce. It's hard to predict. I'm hoping that the age of training these models will get us to a new place to dazzle people with services that are impactful to them, saving them time, giving them more of their life back to do the things they want to do, but building works that mean something to people in this busy life that we're in. I love the idea of someone being able to create a book and labor over that book for 3 months, and then to allow for technology to give them an even better product in 15 minutes, for example. And I think the play space, the toy box that we have to create with is rapidly changing.
I'd add also to that, you know, an aspect of this is the personalization piece as well, that training a model could be on your information. It could be on you, and instead of looking at it as a potential drawback of, you know, copyright or duplicating, it could be a representation of you and your style, your wording, your phrases. And you know, as a company that's all about building a personal product, I think that that's a really exciting angle for us to investigate, is, you know, that ability to, you know, create you know, a helper for your own style, for your own personality.
Which also opens the door to the fraud landscape. And how do you feel about the possibility to be fooled? And I mean, very convincingly fooled.
I think that, you know, with all of those technologies will come the technologies trying to find them. You know, with the speed of students trying to use these models to create term papers, are the companies that the colleges will hire to find the people who are using the tools. And so it's, you know, I guess a race much like anything else, where, you know, if I wanted to do finding fraudulent signatures on contracts, you know, I bet you a AI model would do a really good job. by taking a look at 100 examples of a signature that somebody did, it could probably pick a fraudulent one out of that really easily. And so, you know, it's the kind of thing where you can use it for both, I suppose. And so it'll be an arms race, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, we used to think, and we still think in terms of surface area, you know, with security threats, the surface area of an attack. It seems so simple, doesn't it? I mean, now these systems can authentically reproduce your chief technology officer. If an inbox were ingested, think about the tone of voice and all the things that could be assimilated into a system like this. I'm not so much worried about surface area, and not so much even about authenticity. I'm worried about now speed. Because I don't think we can respond fast enough to a credible threat or a request to a CFO to wire money, the kinds of things that could be sent to 2,000 employees in 1 second, the probability that someone would engage in that as something that would make it hard for the biggest infosecurity teams to even.
But that is one of like good products in AWS, where it's fraud detection. And if, for example, it will analyze all your transactions and see that typically your pattern is maybe wiring $1,000 to someone, and when you wire $1 million in a random day at midnight, it will automatically flag it as a fraudulent transaction. Like, I don't like to call it AI. I can be the black sheep. I don't like to call it AI. Like, I call it trained models, and I have a colleague which also says we are far away from AI, because AI will understand in a millisecond, like, for example, if it has a moral implication. And I love to play with ChatGPT and feeding it the trolley problem, or how my friend says, like, especially with the new Tesla vision, like they kept the cameras and they took all the other sensors away, and he says, imagine like that there is no training for a couple of people that are stoned doing nasty things in the middle of Santa Monica Boulevard, and no one of the engineers thought of putting that in the model. How will the Tesla react? Mm-hmm. And like I always, like, one of my favorite books is Inviting Disaster. I don't remember the exact name. And especially from in aviation, you learn from, like, you know, bad things that happen. And nowadays, like, more and more car manufacturers try to get, like, predictive AI, like, models of, like, preventing accidents. So I would not love to have, like, a fully autonomous car, but I would love to have a car that, you know, it understands that if a pedestrian jumps in front of it or something happens, it will just press the brakes. Or if there is a like having, like, the Internet of Things, the connected things, if one car is coming at a high speed from an intersection and your car is coming from another intersection, it's connected to the traffic light, then it will prevent a possible accident. Like tickets in airplanes, like, it knows that they are on the same level, flying the same course, you get a warning. And then if the pilot doesn't react, it just separates the altitude. So, like... So you don't use AI. We have a question from the internet audience, if you don't mind. Do you want a counterpoint on this?
Yes. Okay.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, you lost me at getting stoned on Santa Monica. I thought I was in a Sheryl Crow song. But getting just back to this moment of disruption, and back again to some of the fear, and, you know, technology doesn't wait. You know, disruptions like this don't wait. They don't have guardrails. This is the industry, there are businesses, they're looking for those guardrails, but the technology is not going to wait for it. I remember when internet was first on the scene, and the fears about, you know, I would never do online banking, and I would never, you know, I would never do my mortgage. I mean, now all that's out the window. And there was another disruption with mobile. I think we're, you know, at the precipice of yet another really big one, and it's going to ask big questions of humanity and of businesses. And I think the value of something like AWS from a business point of view it's exactly what you said. It gives us some guardrails to ensure the trust that we need to deliver for our customers.
But still, there will be some things we'll never trust. Like, as you said, fully autonomous car. We've been in the software long enough to not trust the car to do it for us.
Oh yeah,
Well, you might trust it the way
Yeah,
New York is
but-
laid out, but you
but
might
think
not
about
want to do that to Kishinev.
The most precious things for you, life, your kids, raising your kids, or like something which it's personal for everyone, but you probably still there will be something which will be like, okay, I want to do it. Until maybe we are disrupted again.
I think it's a very human problem to solve. So what you are talking is just like human psychology. It's fine balance between automation and control, which we are trying to solve here at Mixbook. And automation is pushing its limits all the time. And it's natural for you to accept it. You don't even realize it, but step by step, you accept it more and more. And you lean into it naturally, and you feel that it's part of you already. It's not out of your control. You're controlling it, but actually, you're tricked already.
I think it comes back to the tools again, right? It's a tool. You know, you could use it for whatever aspect of simplifying your life makes sense. You know, my wife has hundreds of cookbooks that never get opened anymore. Because why bother when you can just look up the recipe on
She
your
is
phone?
watching. So.
You know, why bother when you can look it up on your phone and it will instantly convert to a double recipe just by typing the number 2 into the box. I think the same thing is going to happen here, where it's like there'll be pieces of our lives that we just couldn't believe that we ever bothered to, you know, write a summary of a article. You know, because it does such a good job at writing a summary. And you know, other pieces where, you know, the creativity that we want to bring to our lives will still be required.
Great topic. Tryon does not call it AI. We have a question from the internet for Olya or David. How do you educate a user about what AI is doing with your products? Do you disclose AI is being used and how it is being used? What are our plans here?
So we already discussed that there is some concern from the user and users, and sometimes when you say AI, we don't get excited at all. We have a whole UX team who is thinking about naming conventions and how do you call it, and how do you call it so that you build trust with your users. Sometimes it's about smarts. Sometimes it's about enhancing your creativity with our technology. Users, they need to understand how it works, but they don't need the nuances of it. They just need to feel secure and they need to trust our software. So it's just about being natural and disclosing as much information as they need.
Should we be guarded about marketing AI? Do you think that we've reached a point where we have to be concerned about the public's impression of AI? Or do we have an opportunity to describe AI as something that is inspiring and motivating for a creative person to create something and to be inspired?
Yeah, I think the answer there is getting to what Michael was touching on, is that the metaphor of a tool. Like, you're really making the things that people are trying to do anyway 10 times easier. And from a marketing point of view, I think we're in a moment where you do have to be careful and sensitive to how customers are perceiving AI. But you know, underneath the hood, there are so many companies using it, and we are using it, but we're not using it in a way that violates trust or that uses our customers' content in any way. So I think it gets back to this idea that it's a tool that can help you tell stories, and when you do tell those stories, you learn more about yourself and your place and your relationships with other people. So I think it's a very powerful tool that we believe that in the hands of our customers will make their lives better and therefore make the world better.
Anna, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'd like to think also that there's aspects about the machine learning process that gets out of this if people understand. I think that there's an education piece to this too. I've done a lot of training models of image recognition, you know, finding particular items in an image. The model you get out the other end, there is no piece of that model where you could go and identify a photo that you gave it as a training set any longer. It's gone. It is numbers on nodes, you know, of millions of nodes. And so I think that with some understanding there, I think that can help also, you know, for people to understand this. Like, yes, you know, I always equated it to, it's like you took all of the photos that you were using for training and put them in the washing machine. And then what you have is a kind of soup of color at the end of it. That doesn't tell you what the photos were at the beginning. It still can be useful, but it's not necessarily something to fear.
I love the way you always describe things, Michael. You know, this is not really obscurity at all. We're talking about very complicated neural networks. We're talking about nearest neighbor. We're talking about a lot of things I don't understand, that we don't understand, that go so deeply to mimic the way the human brain is wired. And I think that a lot of the concerns that people have initially is that they felt that a lot of the technology leaders in Silicon Valley, for example, came together because they felt that we needed to understand, slow down and understand the implications of governance. We all fall asleep when we hear the word governance because we know what that means. It means compliance and things that we may not want to do because we're all innovative disruptors. But the truth is, we have a very powerful age upon us. I think that this is similar to what we saw in the mid to late 90s. It is as monumental, maybe more, than what occurred with the World Wide Web consortium coming out of the bulletin board era. If you think about the Stone Age of plugging your telephone into a modem, you know, to where we are now, and it goes beyond automation as well. I think the way that we think, the way that we create, act, the way that we become inspired. I'm hoping that we're, to your earlier point, Michael, finding a new level, a new starting point. Base camp used to be down here, and now base camp is way up there. It's my hope.
And
Yeah.
one more thing. So people are afraid of everything new, but fear goes away. And if you remember of the 90s, just like 30, 20 years have passed, and we're already perceiving it as a natural thing. But now information exchange is so much faster, and people communicate much more. So that this time of fear will be much more limited. And what was perceived as some delightful experience just like half a year ago, in the next year probably will be something which users expect from us. So it will change. And as like software companies, we have to keep up and we have to be on the cutting edge of the technology, because otherwise you will just stay in the past. You will not be able to compete in that race, and you will kind of stay at that state which is what was okay for some users like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and this state is very like transient. It goes away very fast.
We have another internet question. Thank you for that, Oya. We have an internet question. How do we work with AWS in the United States? I don't want to take the whole floor here, but I will say that there are very big differences with cloud providers and the relationships that we develop as technologists with cloud providers. I've been lucky enough to have been in a lot of early stage companies that have a consortium of other companies being funded by one common group, and we've learned to, we've learned to describe our synergies and our strategies with our partners, and the cloud providers are the most important ones, I think. If we can, be very honest about the things that we aspire to do, whether we know how to do them or not. If a point in time comes where your cloud provider, like AWS, who I think is the most receptive of all the cloud providers, and I'm not being biased, I know this from experience, that you can find alignment with your representative, with your sponsor. Don't be afraid to explain an idea that you have to your team at AWS, to your account representative. There are some really amazing programs in AWS. Training and trading credits is one of them. They have a program right here in Moldova. And Tryon, I guess I should let you tell us a little bit about the community training activities that AWS provides here in Moldova, and then I'll get back to a little bit more advice.
Yeah, so AWS is very customer focused. I've been very happy to work with a lot of people, including professional services team, technical account managers, and in the last 2 years, the developer advocates and community managers. And so first of all, we have the amazing AWS Skill Builder, which has both a free and a paid option. So you can learn the basics for free. If you are an AWS partner or you are a company which works with AWS, you can get a subscription as part of your monthly payments for the cloud services. Then there are community events, like for example here in Moldova we did the AWS Essentials training. We are planning to do some more advanced training. We are planning to partner with the local universities, and there is a program now going on called AWS Cloud Clubs, which encourages people in high schools and universities to start a cloud club and promote AWS cloud knowledge. And obviously the user group events, the community events, the conferences, we always share a lot of knowledge. And here in Moldova we are partnered with TechWheel, and through TechWheel we do trainings. And I hope to see people at these events and learn more about AWS, learn about AWS services. From time to time, when we can, we bring people from AWS, Romania, like in general people from EMEA, which are close to us, can come on site. Unfortunately, one of the persons who was supposed to come here today didn't have a possibility to come because she was stuck in a customer meeting, which got too much longer. And but whenever we'll have events and trainings and people from AWS talking to us, we will let the community know to come and meet with people and ask their questions.
AWS does a great job. There's a long-running thread of commitment to share knowledge, share information, give those training credits, not just to kids in high school or people in new business. If you want to get a certification, for example, your company can be the first place for you to naturally get that. AWS makes it possible. They can help you with your cloud bill, and they can take your training if you reach interest or critical mass in your company. There's all sorts of negotiations that maybe you don't know that you can do to help educate your company and also help yourself in learning how to apply these things. AWS has been, over the years, 12 to 15 years, there was sort of a cloud migration credit program. If you remember, we came out of the data center age. I don't know if anyone here is old enough to remember. I think some of you might be. We were liquidating data centers. At least I was at a company liquidating 5 data centers over the course of 3 years at one point in my career on different coasts. And we would not have been able to have a high growth company that could actually migrate to the cloud without the kind of assistance that AWS provides. They will look at your spend across 5 data centers if you're in that, or 1 data center for that matter. They will help you figure out how long it's going to take you to migrate to a better situation. We've come from that to now everyone's starting in the cloud, and I bet you didn't know that you could talk to AWS about what your dreams and desires are and the kind of company you're building and the kind of growth that you want to see every year. You never know, a few years into that you might find a very deep alignment with products that come to market. They may help you with credits to learn how to use those products. The thing that we can all bet on is that AWS has scale in mind, and it lets us free ourselves so we can think about how to use these products with the end user instead of will they work. And that's one of the most refreshing things that I've seen to date. We're all very excited about the press releases that we've seen about generative AI with all of the cloud providers. I am most excited about what our future holds because I know that the cloud provider that I've used for many years in my career focuses on security and scale and unbridled innovation, and they understand how fast you want to move. So don't be afraid to ask any of that. We've got some more internet questions, and I'm happy to try to fill at least another 5 minutes. I don't know how much more time we have. We did start a little bit early. And maybe open it up for more questions here. But slido.com, the code is 1137-327. Maybe we can get back to you if we can't do it interactively, maybe we can get back to you offline. But we have a YouTube viewer. How would we balance moral obligation and the bar that we've set for ourselves when our competition may have a lower bar? Who wants to take that one?
It's an easy one.
Yeah.
We have a mission.
No, yeah. I think the truth will always reveal. Like it's again, you have the risk to lose, but at the end of the day, the truth always comes to the surface. It's just a matter of time. But it's a risk. Yeah, it's
I can't think of a safer application. Back to the beginning of this whole panel, you know, Mixbook has a very specific mission to empower people to be creative and connect deeply with the ones that they love. That is unwavering. Everything that we do is for the creator. It's a much safer space when we've got a garden-walled approach to using a creator's insights in their space privately with them for their own automations, for their own creativity of waving their hand and their project looks like it came out of a designer's brain and it looks like Ansel Adams all of a sudden, or in the style of whatever they can dream up. I think that the play space that we're creating is a very safe and intrinsically beautiful space that doesn't compromise or market or create any concern with the general public. And that's one of the reasons we have so many rewarding interviews with candidates at Mixbook, because there are a lot of AI professionals that are being sought after by marketing companies, and there's nothing wrong with marketing. We love digital marketing, it's a good thing, but AI is not always being used for good.
I think also that it can be a benefit when you're talking to your customers. Having a strong, secure stance, a obvious position. I mean, companies use that. They highlight how they have a strong user security model, privacy, and there's no reason why that can't become a selling point beyond just the obvious user privacy aspects, but even just generic ways that the user data is used.
So true. I'd love to be able to do this, and I know we will, well enough to be able to be confident enough to market it. And I want to say that with confidence, from a technology, from a science landscape, from that perspective, I want to air gap as best we can these insights and use them for deep personal creation of amazing works. And I think that we have a lot of fun at Mixbook for that reason. We're all dedicated to that. And I think the future is going to be really exciting. Happy to take any questions from anyone in the room here today. Feel free to raise your hand. We'll give it another 5 minutes if you have anything. Anybody?
In terms of AI, what do you think are the boundaries for Mixbook in terms of using AI, especially in photography? Because I think the mission is still somehow to keep the present moments or past moments like as real as possible. And then you have the AI which kind of transforms it into a cartoon.
Okay.
If you go deep. So for me it's interesting to know your vision about like using it within Mixbook. Like where are the boundaries that you would use?
Okay, the question was, for people on the internet, where are the boundaries for how we're using AI in general? I paraphrase. Who wants to take it?
Well, I'll take that one. Just I think there's a customer answer there and a mission answer, as Ilya pointed out. You can create wild, fantastical images and stories with these technologies. And the stories that we're focusing on with our customers are the events that really happened and the memories that are real that happened from those events. And it's a real problem that we're trying to solve, which is these memories fade and they go away if you don't bring them back to the surface and you don't bring them to life. And there's no better way to bring those to life than through authentic, creative storytelling. And I think we have enough to win without going the fantastical route. But there are practical aspects of this technology that will help solve these customer problems. Someone that was in the background and you want to remove them, but it actually doesn't change what actually happened there from a personal perspective.
The original concept you still want to preserve, and then just small adjustments like polishings can be still kind of, it's more for image processing and
And it can also be, our model is around printing now, and AI upscaling is a real opportunity for us, and we're actively going after it, and likely so are many others. But that's a real practical use case. How you could preserve those memories, but do it through print.
So,
Anyone else? Okay, well, on that note, I'd love to thank all of you for coming today. Thank you to the internet audience. I hope we got to enough of the questions there. We are so excited about what AWS is doing for companies like us. They're helping us realize our vision. Stay tuned in our technology pursuits. Keep your eye on Mixbook. Go to our careers page. Contact Tryon if you're local, and let's get the community bolstered as best we can. We're going to do more of these community events. We're out here from time to time. We want to be an ambassador for AWS here in terms of what training programs there are. We want to work with Tryon to spread that message to the community. We have, I'm told, Tryon has let me know that we have access to facilities that can even accommodate much larger groups based on relationships that we have. I'd love to have a 500 or 1,000 person, maybe that's too big, summit of some sort in our future. But now that you know us, we're really excited that you got a chance to meet us. We're very excited to meet you. We'll stick around and shake some hands and answer questions informally if you'd like. But again, thank you to everyone on the panel and to the presentations today. And Sergey Sorin, who's in the audience, thank you. Rudin, thank you for your work. And very good, very well done.